What do you wish Hollywood would stop doing? Showing incorrect CPR. Milking everything dry. Having a main character whose job, income level does not match their home or lifestyle at all. Characters getting punched multiple times in the face in one scene and having no signs of the trauma in the next scene. Adapting shit into live-action movies when they should really be animated. Examples include upcoming Mega Man, Pac-Man and Minecraft movies which are ***** set to be live-action. Forcing a love story that makes no sense in a movie that has nothing to do with romance. What's the most passive-aggressive thing you can bring to a potluck? Paper napkins from Taco Bell. Empty Tupperware containers to take home the leftovers. Store-bought cookies with the reduced per day old sticker visible. Had a friend show up to a lobster boil. BYOB. With 4 uninvited guests and 3 pieces of corn, so that exactly whatever the hostess plans to make for their signature dish. Especially if you make it better. We went to a Thanksgiving dinner where everyone was supposed to bring something. The guy who was supposed to bring mashed potatoes walked in with a bag of spuds. Not cooked or anything. Just raw. 20 minutes before dinner. What's the most unreliable source of information that people use anyway? Screen grabs from social media sites that are making claims without citations or sources. Asterisk. Here's a link to Wikipedia article on propaganda techniques. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/propaganda_techniques. I feel like a lot of people need to peruse it and learn about it. This shit has become so common on all forms of social media, for any demographic or category of users, that it has basically become the default way that we communicate with each other online. It's not going to stop by blaming an other, since we're all partaking and propagating it. AskReddit. Some good answers already. Mine is historical anecdotes. The NASA pen versus pencil thing, which is a pack of lies. The many things that Hitler apparently did first when he came to power. He must have had one hell of a busy day to cover all those bases. Shit. Most of us just get some logins set up and meet like 4 people on day 1 of a new job. Mussolini making the trains run on time. They didn't. And he wouldn't have been the asshole to make it happen. In any case. Various no true Scotsman arguments. If so and so had really been a such and such, he would never have committed all those crimes against humanity. And various short-form myths caught up in exoticizing other cultures, or straight up infantilizing people who had an advanced civilization of their own with the notion that they lived simpler lives in harmony with nature, or whatever other romanticized bullshit is the flavor of the week. Social media. The obvious answer is strangers online. People take opinions about politics, economics, education, and heck even actual life advice from people with usernames like QueefMaster420. I would say punditry as opposed to reading actual reporting. Most people don't know the difference. It's almost 2023, what has no reason to still exist? Convenience fees when paying bills online. The porn VHS rental underneath my apartment. My husband says this daily. How the FK is it almost 2023 and I still have shitty cell service? We don't live in the middle of nowhere, we're about 30 minutes from a big city and our town has 30 to 40k, not counting all the people who live in between suburbs. Cell companies show perfect signal maps. Lies. Total lies. Non-resealable cereal bags. Polio and several similarly extinctable diseases. Like there are some diseases that aren't really within our means to defeat yet. HIV. The flu. COVID. Ebola, etc. But there are definitely a few like cholera, polio, various parasites, and whatnot that only have like one or two host species and that we have drugs capable of defeating 90 to 95% of the time. That we could wipe out permanently if we so chose. The fact that we haven't just gritted our teeth and done so yet really bothers me a lot. Like sure it would cost a $1 billion and require a fair amount of public support. But that's a very low price for wiping out a major continuing source of human suffering and death. Permanently. I just want a normal fucking printer that doesn't suck balls. Why in The Walking Dead did nobody go to freezing climates where the zombies being gooey and without body heat would have frozen solid? Okay, I'm gonna state the obvious that seems to have escaped everyone. Because Zombie Show minus Zombies lacks a significant plot point. Because Georgia has the best tax incentives in the film industry. I live in such a climate. Without electricity for heat, people would die. People do have skills on starting fires and using generators. But if people aren't used to surviving in the freezing cold, they're unprepared. A lot of ways to die up here. People slip on ice and break bones. Lay there waiting for help. A zombie apocalypse has them wait a long time until they just die. Growing both edible and medicinal plants. Because no more pharmaceutical medicine anymore. Has the better climate in the south and a longer growing season. If a zombie apocalypse happened, I'd steal a car and head south. I would not want to be here in the winter for that difficulty. If you spend half the year in the Arctic and half in Antarctica, you can also avoid vampires because of the 24-hour daylight. I can't say if the situation would play out the same in the TWD universe. But this was actually a plot point in World War Z by Max Brooks, so it could have some relevance. Edit. The part in question. https u2.be/a_b_hlq9gok. A lot of people did flee north, but were completely unprepared for the harshness of the Canadian wilderness, especially when winter set in. While they were safe from zombies, it effectively led to mass starvation and freezing to death, widespread cannibalism, and basically the ecological devastation of Canada. Those chapters' POV character claimed that 11 million people died just in that first winter. And the same thing, if not worse, was implied to have happened in other northern regions around the world. This is a plot in World War Z. It turns out that most people have terrible survival skills, making nature and fellow man a worse threat than the dead. What is something popular in your country that you absolutely don't have interest in? Anything even remotely having to do with celebrities. Gender reveal party. Reality TV shows. Skiing. I'm Swiss. I know how to do it, I've done a lot of it, but no thanks. Tim Hortons. Football. I tag along to matches with a mate from time to time, but it really is like the scene out of the IT Crowd. What are practical solutions to homelessness? Housing first is the only solution proven to work and would actually work out cheaper than most of the band-aid solutions. A lot of the arguments against it focus on mental health and drug addiction, but those cannot be solved if a person doesn't have a stable living situation. You need supportive housing. You also need to consider different types of people experiencing homelessness. A single mother living with her kids in a car, showering at the gym and still going to work would need just a place to live. A veteran with PTSD would need a place to live plus mental health care, supportive housing. Someone with developmental disabilities would likely need long-term residential care. Then you get those who have aged out of the foster care system who weren't lucky enough to find a long-term living situation who need support for a few years while they get their lives together. You also have those who have recently been paroled who just need something while they find a job. and a long-term plan. The one thing all those have in common is the need for housing first. People focus on those who are visible. Those who have mental health issues or drug problems, the more violent or crazy types. But don't notice the number flying below the radar who are currently unhoused but otherwise live a regular life with work, school, etc. I read recently as many as 40% of Americans are a few paychecks away from homelessness, which is horrifying. Some kind of regulation as to corporations buying property would be good too. I worked at a nonprofit that was basically an Amazon fulfillment, boxing and shipping warehouse. Every employee was either homeless, in recovery, recently out of prison, or some combination. We had full-time counselors that focused on housing first, mental health later, and then job placement before they graduated. We also had financial volunteers come in to sort people's debts and taxes. If anyone was interested, capable and safe. We had a sewing shop, a wood shop, and a machine shop for learning more advanced skills than fulfillment. I taught carpentry in the wood shop. It was pretty successful. We even made about 85% of our budget from work and selling our products. The rest came from fundraising and whatever state and federal grants we could get. I would say it wasn't perfect. A lot dropped out, relapsed, or just went back to their habits. It was kinda depressing. But the ones that made it had a home, a financial plan, a job lined up, and mental health services scheduled. If we could something like that at a larger scale, which would be a hell of a nightmare to figure out, I think it would be the best option. A holistic approach gets people a blank slate and a fresh start with a paycheck and a roof, without forcing them to give up their own agency and freedom. Years ago I worked at a day center for the homeless, and I'd guess about 80% of the people that used it had zero interest in re-entering the normal world. It was just too much for them. The rules in their world were much easier to navigate. Some folks only know how to function in survival mode. I always thought dead malls could be organized rather quickly with appropriate sections for sleeping quarters and outreach areas for specific needs. Security would be important, and step-up programs available for those wanting it. Ample day services available for those in need who don't want to get off the streets. 2. Better access to mental health facilities and professionals. Better mental health treatments besides only SSRIs. Subsidized assisted living facilities. We could go back to how it was before asylums were closed down. There are hardly any left anymore. And as a result, they are so overcrowded they just don't take in people who need to be there. In 1970, there was an open spot in an asylum for 1 in every 300 Americans. Now it's closer to 1 in every 10,000. 1 in every 300 having so many mental issues they can't function in society sounds about right to me. I don't think the rates of mental illness have really changed all that much. 1 in 10,000? There's no way they're able to help everyone who needs it. Granted, the asylums were shut down for some pretty compelling reasons. They were rife with mismanagement and abuse. There was straight-up torture going on in some of them. And no one ever got in trouble because who are you going to believe? The schizo locked up at the funny farm? Or the doctor trying to treat them? The power dynamics were definitely out of whack and were definitely abused. But that doesn't mean the goal of what the asylums were for was bad. A little bit of oversight would have probably gone a long way to make asylums a viable option. Anyway, I say it's a practical solution because it's one we used to have. Subscribe, my brothers.